Hi, and welcome to In Focus with MCI. This is our opportunity to highlight community champions, those who are on the front line doing the work here in Miami-Dade County. And let me tell you something, do I have a champion? I have a shero in the studio with us today. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome you again into our In Focus moment. We thank you for following us here on YouTube, on Facebook, and of course on Instagram. On Facebook, Miami Children's Initiative, as well as on Instagram, I Am Liberty City. But most certainly here on YouTube, we thank you so much for following us here at Miami Children's Initiative. Well, we are so happy to be here. We are now in the springtime. Things are moving forward. There are great opportunities. We've got fantastic weather. We will not talk about those spring breakers that came into our community. But listen, as we're here now, there is a wonderful historical moment I'd like to share with you. There is a movie. Maybe some of you heard about it. It's called One Night in Miami. Haven't we had some great nights in Miami? But this particular movie highlights the fact that three American greats, and note I didn't say African American, Hispanic, but three outstanding Americans come together, but later is joined by a fourth. They come together in Miami at a hotel to discuss life, love, interesting next steps. And it happened, and it's real life. It's called One Night in Miami at the Hampton House. It is my pleasure to bring to you our In Focus family, Miss Jacqui Colyer, who sits as the board chair of the historic Hampton House. Welcome, Ms. Colyer.
Well, thank you. What a big announcement. I mean, like, I am impressed. Thank you.
Absolutely. So listen.
First of all, let me say I am so glad to be here. I'm just really glad to be able to talk to you because I've heard so much about how things are going with MCI, so I am just honored to be here.
So I'm glad you said that, because how can I even start a conversation without properly, I have to properly put who you are and who you are to us in perspective. Really, when it comes to thought processes and strategy and implementation of what was on paper and thought of what a Miami Children's Initiative or what it's escaping me, a Magic Children's Zone, there it is, what a Magic Children's Zone could look like. You most certainly were a part of those early and very interesting conversations.
You know, I hadn't thought about it until you just said it. I remember when the Miami Children, it wasn't called that then, but the Miami Children's Initiative was brought to my desk. I was working with the Department of Children and Families as the regional director, and the state secretary thought that this was a good idea. And I looked at him and I thought, we're going to have to really push for this because it's important in this community, and we have to figure out how to make it happen. So I kind of took $1 million out of my budget and made sure that the initial funding for the Miami Children's Initiative was put in place, and we got other partners who came together as well, so the Miami Children's Initiative would be able to launch. So I hadn't thought about it like that, but I guess I am the godmother almost
of
the Miami Children's Initiative.
And listen, a very good fairy godmother. Listen, we are so, and I think we recently had a staff retreat, and I shared with them we cannot appreciate who we are without appreciating where we've been. And so, Ms. Colyer, and let me just take that out.
Just call me Jackie.
Jackie.
Thank you.
We thank you for, here we are 12 years in existence.
Is it that long already?
12 years in existence. And here we sit still serving the children and families of Liberty City. And we've had some bumps along the way. We've had to adjust our sails to the wind that was blowing, but we're still here.
Yeah.
And we're still evolving. Most certainly Liberty City is evolving. The community that you potentially took that first $1 million out for,
No.
it's no more. Or there are very small pieces of that that's still around. But I want to say that I am very thankful for people like you who had the insight, foresight to say we've got to address gun violence in Liberty City. We've got to address poverty in Liberty City, that it's not generational. We have to develop real systems that there is a pipeline instead of school to prison, but there is a pipeline of college and career in the path of the children.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that.
But let me say something to you about you, because one of the things that I'm really proud of is the fact that the Miami Children's Initiative just didn't fade away, because it could have. I mean, with all of the changes that are happening in Liberty City now, it could have been just another program that just, did not make it. But you figured out a way, which is just the part that I love. You figured out a way to find a way, to make a way to keep it going. So 12 years later, it's still, trugging along, and that's a good thing. And the fact that you could see that the winds were shifting, and that you changed the sail so that you could catch that wind, and that you could move it forward, and that it is moving forward. And I'm really, really glad to see that. The Liberty City that we funded 12 years ago is just a very, very different Liberty City right now. We are moving into an era where all of the public housing that I, had been a part of has really changed. And so now we have this new affordable housing movement that is going to literally change the face of Liberty City, Brownsville, Allapattah, and most of, the inner city.
The urban.
So, the urban core. So what we're seeing now is a very, very different community than the one, that I looked at and thought, hey, we need to do this.
Not only did you look at it, but you lived in it.
Isn't that how I met you?
That's how you met me.
That's a funny, it's such a funny story, because every time I think about it, I'm like, that's Latasha Daniels, the same Jewel.
That's Jewel. That's Jewel niece.
That's it. And I thought about Jewel the other day, because one of her friends came over to see me at the Hampton house, and I said, I cannot believe it. She says, yeah, I'm here. We're in Liberty City,
yes.
Right? She said, yeah, I'm here. I heard you were here. What can I do? I went like, you can help. So she jumped in and started helping.
Okay.
And that's how Jewel was too. If you remember, Jewel was just like that. I loved her voice. Jacqui, what can I do? So Jewel. Thank you, Jewel. God bless you. So thank you for bringing Latasha into my life, and for being in my life as well.
So let me tell the story, but let me back up.
Because I'm not going to tell the story.
But Jacqui, let me back up.
Sure.
I was looking in Redfin.
Okay.
I'm in the housing market.
Okay.
And I am in that sandwich generation where I have to now start considering caring for my parents. My father has gone on to transition in life, and so Mama is going between two places, between my Alabama roots and here, and so I need a larger space. And so in the communities that I've kind of put in my query, it shares with me houses as they are sold in Liberty City. On Saturday, a home on 58th Terrace in Northwest 14th sold for $340,000.
Are you serious? That's Liberty City. That's not Allapattah. That's Liberty City.
58th and 14th.
I know exactly where you're talking about.
I grew up on 55th
I
and
know,
12th.
and I grew up on 59th and 17th, and
Yes.
so I'm looking. Wow.
I probably could walk to the house and say, this used to be Miss Felton house.
Exactly. Miss Stubbs, Miss
Yes.
Ferguson, Miss Farrington.
$340,000.
Wow.
It sold on Saturday. And so, as just to further validate your point,
Wow.
the faces are quickly changing because, and will change all the more, because as the housing market increases, the property value, which is a
Exactly.
good thing, goes up, but it also means that the property taxes go up. And for those who have lived in an environment that they could afford, will no longer be able to hold on to the homes that were legacies to many of my generation, unless they are upwardly mobile.
Yeah.
And so there are some challenges and conversations that I really want to have at the county level and even at some state conversation with our representatives to say, how do we keep these people in their homes who have fought and have done what they needed to do to keep their homes. But now to our funny story. So, in Scott Projects, not that any of you out there in Liberty City or those watching on this national and local platform would know anything about Scott Projects, but Google it. Google Hope 6. Maybe that's what we'll say.
That's what you need to Google.
Google Hope 6, right?
Yeah.
But there was a lot of concerns and questions that residents who were living in then Scott Projects, they were saying how they couldn't make it and how the conditions to which they lived in were unbearable and how life, y'all don't know. And again, they're talking to the head of the Department of Children and Families. Y'all don't know what it means to live over here. Don't come over here telling us how to live and what to do. And so this young lady decided, well, I'm going to move my whole family. She didn't just go for the weekend. She moved into the projects from a very nice home, a luscious home, a safe home, free from gunshots, free from loud music, with the red and white mustard, red and yellow pure funk DJ. Not next to the railroad track when the train come in 2 and 3 and 5 o'clock in the morning and just stop for no reason and honk the horn. Am I telling your story?
You are telling the story. And you know, the interesting part is that your aunt was the one who was basically my champion, my hero, my shero throughout that entire time. Because Jewel just taught me what it was like living in public housing. But she also taught me what it meant to, have family and have friends who really, really cared about you. Mm-hmm. So when I see Tina is like my cousin or my god sister because, she was there with us. She was there with me and Jewel and with Mary and with, all of the other women who lived there at the time. But the one thing that I remember most about living in Scott was the whole idea of raising children, just like you're talking about now with Miami Children's Initiative. And the fact that so many children, had young parents. I mean, their parents were like young teenagers. And so we started a program, if you remember, it's called Families in Touch. Mm-hmm. And they met in my living room.
Which was listen, not only did she move in there, she didn't take, Family Dollar furniture, right? Around the corner furniture. Let me just have a real conversation with y'all on In Focus. She took quality pieces and put it in that housing unit. And in doing that, she was showing them that it's not the space that you're in, but it's about the life you put in it. And I tell you, when I walked in her house, I say, this the projects? I didn't know, because trust me, my aunt who lived next door, there were several little brown friends on the walls, on the ground. It was not the same. But you demonstrated, even in hosting those family nights, and your husband, bless his heart, he's a saint from Jesus. He has to be. Girl, or you got that good snapper turtle. Now, I said what I said. She got that good, y'all. Y'all hear me? Listen, that man loved her that he moved in the projects with her children.
Yeah.
Listen. And I gotta say this. The night I went in their house, he helped them with the newspaper. They listening to jazz music. I say, what time warp did I walk in? It was unbelievable. You guys modeled what love and life could be when there's chaos outside. It could be peace and tranquil in the. I'm sorry, I just had to say all that.
And you know what's funny is that's why everybody would come to the house, because remember, Families in Touch was just supposed to be for the 8 families on my block.
On your block.
I ended up with 40-something people.
People would come.
And they would all come. And finally, we just had to move out into the courtyard because we had such a large attendance. And we talked about all kinds of things. We talked about the same things that you're dealing with Children's Initiative. And I mean, yeah. And it was all about, how you raise children so that they grow up to be healthy. They grow up to be, achievers. They grow up to really look at and love themselves. And sometimes when you grow up in an environment where people don't value you, then you really don't think that you're someone to value. Yes. And I used to tell the kids that all the time, that listen, it does not matter where you come from. All that mostly matters is what's in your heart and what you're willing to do and what you're willing to give.
So we kind of took that same thought and say that a zip code doesn't define you.
A zip code doesn't define you, and it shouldn't. It shouldn't. I think that a part of what we have to do as a community is to remember that and to teach our children as if they lived in whatever zip code we think they should live in. That would really make that big a difference. Because what's crazy is that 33142, which is the zip code that everybody kind of talks about, and 33143, one number apart, totally different worlds apart.
Morningside to Liberty City.
Yeah. Or 33136, which is Overtown. And 33138, which is Miami Shores.
Yes.
And so it's like these numbers shouldn't define us, but they end up doing so because a lot of times we don't really look at who we are and whose we are and what we are. Because we're some amazing, amazing people and an amazing children. The kids in the neighborhood were just so incredibly gifted
and bright
and talented,
and they didn't even know they were bright.
They didn't. It was like they would come up with these games and these plays and these songs, and I'm just looking at them and going like, wow, you all are amazing. And they would just laugh and say, poor lady, she doesn't know we're not amazing. And but I kept saying it over and over. And you know what? I found out that Jules' granddaughter went to college.
Yes.
I mean, I just take a deep breath when I hear that.
Not college. They are correctional officers.
Exactly.
They're doing very well.
And so sometimes the environment has to change. Sometimes, we have to figure out, how to get children to a place where they really, really can thrive and not just survive, because they deserve so much, much more.
They do. So talking about amazing, let's now transition to the Hampton House.
I think that's such a great segue. But let me tell you something. I had a career in social services, which I loved, which I did for many years. And then after I decided that I want to do something different. I want to do something that I always wanted to do in terms of history. Just looking at history and preserving history. Because one of the things that I find in our community is that they tear our stuff down just like it's nothing. I mean, it's like we lose things every day in the Black community because they see it as they don't value it. And I guess they don't value it because we don't value it. So as a result, many what I call monuments are just torn down and destroyed because like you say, people live in communities. The taxes go up very high. They can't figure out how to keep that legacy home. And so as a result, it ends up by either being torn down or thrown away, mostly torn down, and they put something new there. So back when I was in high school, I had this wonderful teacher, counselor by the name of Enid Pinckney, Dr. Enid Pinckney. And she basically saved my life and a whole bunch of other kids in high school's life. I was attending Edison Senior High School.
I'm so sorry.
I know. And the three of us, and
This is a Bulls house, Miami Northwestern. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And there were three of us that led a demonstration at Edison Senior High School. Leroy Lang, Gayla Brown, and myself. We convinced all of the black students that we should walk out of school because they were not going to select a cheerleader and a black cheerleader and the majorette, and the cadets they couldn't do anything about. And so we led this walkout, and the principal was going to expel the three of us from school, expel, gone. And Dr. Pinckney said, no, 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 you can't do that. Let's figure out another way. And so she basically saved our careers so that we could actually go on to college afterwards. And so when she asked me, and we were talking, years and years later, she asked me about, serving on the Historic Hampton House board. That was when I realized that I had found what I really, really loved to do.
You found your tribe.
I found my tribe, and I found my encore career, my encore, gifts and talents that I wanted to give to the community. So when she asked me to be on the board, I said, absolutely, anything for you, and so I became the vice chair of the board, and then eventually the chair. And then we were doing pretty good. I mean, we were, kind of paddling through. But then COVID hit, and we went like, oh my God, we are basically, mostly the public come to visit us to look at our museum.
So that's what I'm saying. I think we're speeding past. What is the Hampton House?
Oh yeah, okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. You're right. The Hampton House is a Green Book hotel. It was the premier Green Book hotel in Miami, Florida. It was at one point the home of all the jazz legends, all the jazz, bebop, R&B, and for example, I'm going to give you some examples. This is just so cool. Josephine Baker,
yes.
Nat King Cole, Jackie Wilson. Jackie Wilson, Sam Cooke, they all performed at the Historic Hampton House, because remember, back during segregation and during Jim Crow, African Americans were not allowed to live on the beach, to stay on the beach, even though they could perform on the beach. Mm-hmm. So when black people traveled, they had to travel to what are known as Green Book hotels and Green Book in businesses. And so
and there's a great movie that kind of talks about it, called The Green Book.
Yeah. But the Green Book doesn't really go into all of the Green Book history. And so if you come to the Historic Hampton House, you get to see and hear about all of the Green Book history, and the fact that there were 5 Green Book hotels in Miami-Dade County, which is just amazing. There was the Hampton House, the Mary Elizabeth, the Sir John, and that's where I learned how to swim. And there were all of these wonderful, businesses that were basically were registered in the Green Book. Mm-hmm. And the Green Book was developed by a postal worker by the name of Mr. Green. I can't think of his first name right now. But he developed all of these places that were havens for black people. So while they were traveling, they wouldn't be harmed or hurt, as long as they were in safe, they would go to these safe places. And so the Hampton House was built in the 50s, and it was restored in the late 50s, and it became, because it started out as Booker Terrace. And then it became the Hampton House. And
how did we come to that name?
There was a contest, and there was a contest to figure out what the new name would be, because they didn't want to keep Booker Terrace. They wanted a new name for the hotel. And so there was a contest, and Essie Silva won the contest, and she named it. She wanted it to be called Hampton House.
Uh-huh.
And of course she'd attended Hampton University, but that's how we end up, a historically black college and university, and that's how we end up with the name the Hampton House. And the Hampton House has always been iconic. It has never looked like any of the other Green Book hotels in Miami, because if you look at the architecture of the Hampton House, it truly looks like it should be in probably somewhere on South Beach, because that's the Art Deco feel that it has, and it's a beautiful 30,000 square foot Green Book hotel that at one point had 50 rooms, and it had a pool that was just beautiful. It was the pool that Martin Luther King swam in, because when he came to Miami, he felt comfortable and at home. And it was also the pool, if you look at in the movie One Night in Miami, where Cassius Clay jumps into the pool and he's shadow boxing underwater.
Yes.
That's the same pool.
That is right there at the Hampton House.
And the Hampton House, like I said, and like you know, in your introduction talked about, is the fact that those four great men came together and really hashed out and talked about issues that black men probably are still talking about today.
Yes.
You know, how do I make a difference? How do I, you know, keep my integrity? And I listened to the gentleman who was testifying in the George Floyd trial, and he talked about, he says, I witnessed, and he said, I was not going to lose my cool, I was not going to get angry, because I wanted to make sure that I could tell the story. And if you think about what Sam Cooke was talking about in the movie, he was saying that I do the things I do because I want to not only empower myself, but I want to empower other African Americans as well. And if there's a part in the movie where Cassius Clay and Sam Cooke are sitting in Sam Cooke's very fast car, and he says black people want exactly what you and I have, Sam, and that is to be free, to be ourselves.
To be ourselves.
To be ourselves. And so now the historic Hampton House is bringing back and restoring. It's just about restored. It's we're in our fourth phase of restoration, and right now we're also restoring the legacy in terms of bringing in the type of performers that were there back in the day.
Yes.
In fact, we tell the story and we say that the initial performers came because they had to. Today they come because they want to. Eric Benet came to the historic Hampton House because he wanted to.
So now, Eric Benet, talk to me about that and what happened with that. And is this so? I don't want to describe it. Tell me what's happening that brought Eric Benet in Liberty City / Brownsville community,
4240 Northwest 27th Avenue.
So on 42nd and 27th Avenue, the heart of the urban core, a national recording artist comes to our city. Not at the Jackie Gleason.
Nope. Not at the Adrian Arsh.
Not at the Arsh, but right in the urban core. What brought him here?
The historic Hampton House. As a board, I've got a wonderful board, decided that a part of what we have to do is, if we are going to revive our community, we have to find ways that really bring in the type of talent that will bring the people back into our communities. So in the future, like I said, our next big artist is Chaka Khan, and after that we're looking at possibly Gregory Porter and Nicole Henry.
No way!
Yes.
But we haven't talked about what this is. It's called From Bebop
to Hip Hop.
Yes.
From Bebop to Hip Hop.
Yes.
And that's the kind of, and we're going to bring in some bebop artists and some hip hop artists and
from
jazz and all of it.
So From Bebop to Hip Hop is a music series that began in the month of March. And will continue on a monthly music series.
Right. We're gonna have a concert. We have 2 more concerts. Then we're gonna take a break because we want to do Under the Stars and and the moon and everything. We're gonna take a break. because it's way too hot in the summer.
And it rains.
And it rains. And we're going to come back in the winter. In the winter and in the spring, and finish up the series. No, fall and the winter.
In the fall and winter. So a music series, bebop to
6
hip-hop.
concerts.
6 concert series that brings in artists from genres from bebop
exactly
to hip hop. And Eric Benet, and you'll see on these video presentations, you'll see on what we're showing, you'll see Eric singing. And I forgive audience, you're gonna hear me hollering and screaming, saying, "Sing to me," and all of this, because they had 2 shows.
Right.
So but it's a dinner, and talk to us about that.
Oh yeah, it's a supper club. It's like being in a wonderful 50s, 60s supper club where you come in, you're dressed, you smell good, you look good. The food was fabulous. We had Chef Giorgio off of Miami Beach, South Beach at the Giorgio Santorini, and we had Chef Gennard, who is the top chef on streaming TV, and he came in and he made the most wonderful salmon. He did the salmon and the chicken, and Chef Giorgio did the short ribs, and the short ribs. I think I had way too much short ribs, and that's why I've got to come to your exercise class. But and we just had a really great time. And Chef, they both were wonderful. We had
so
really nice guests.
You had beef, you had fish. You had chicken, and you had a vegetarian entree.
Yeah, we always and we will always have a vegetarian entree because that's just what we should do. We want to appeal to everyone, and if you notice the audience, it wasn't a black audience, it wasn't a white audience, it was a Miami audience.
It was a
everybody,
and everyone was there dressed. Now we're gonna get into these handsome shorts. We're not gonna talk about what the handsome shorts are. But most certainly you want to encourage a classy, chic, but comfortable.
Yeah.
Since you're outside in under the South Florida canopy of heat and of beauty.
Yes, yes.
And so I think it was phenomenal. It was a socially distanced CDC adhered to event.
We adhered to all of the guidelines, and we made sure that we did that because it was important for us. For the Hampton House to reopen partially, to get our feet wet to figure this out. And we didn't realize that there is such a demand because both shows sold out by Friday morning. We were out of tickets by Friday morning. So I'm so glad that you came. Thank you so much for supporting us.
But I also want to say to those who have ADA requirements, all that,
everything.
all of those will be accommodations will be made for you.
Yeah.
This has been fabulous. We gotta have you back.
I gotta come back. I gotta come back.
And just go ahead on and mark me in for Shaka Khan. And you said Gregory Porter. I do not believe this. We gotta talk.
This is what we're gonna do in Miami. We are not gonna be erased. We are not gonna let anybody just throw the Hampton House away. We are going to be the force that brings back and works toward economic development in a cultural setting in Miami, in Liberty City, in Brownsville.
We are so
We're
happy.
gonna do this.
So listen, audience, in focus, our moment today has been with Ms. Jacqui Colyer. Thank you for joining us, board chair of the historic Hampton House. As we close, please give website and contact information that people can inquire about this series and any other information.
Yeah, the website is, of course, www.historichamptonhouse.org. Just go to historichamptonhouse.org. We have a wonderful new website that has all of our information, including all the guest artists from bebop to hip hop, and about all of the things that are going on. We have a wonderful music program called the BUMP, or Brownsville United Music Project, which is in partnership with the University of Miami, and we're going to also join into a partnership with Liberty City Elementary School because I'm excited about that. And so we have some really good programs there, but I am just excited about all the things that we're doing and all the things that we want to do in the future. So join us at the Historic Hampton House www.historichamptonhouse.org, or you can call us 305-638-5800, 305-638-5800. And we do have an Instagram. It's called Original Hampton House. I think the hash mark goes before that, Original Hampton House.
Okay.
Yeah. And we have a Facebook also, thehamptonhouse.org.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, thank you for joining us for this moment in Focus. We'll be right back.